Okay. Hi, Lily. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you, John?
Great. And we are very excited here to welcome Bruno Borie of Chateau Ducru Beaucaillou. Hello, Bruno.
Hello, hello. Good afternoon or good morning to you. And do we have any people from Hong Kong here? Or?
It's possible. There's have been a few tuning in late night after their nice wine dinners and stuff. So we've had some stay up late and tune in over the course of the past 3 months. But I think this is our first event that we've started outdoors, actually. You were the
Yeah.
first one to take us outdoors. I assume you are at Chateau Ducru Beaucaillou, at the property, the beautiful property that I've been to. So take us on a little tour.
So now you will have the, voilà, faut que je juste un peu monter. Stop, là, c'est bon. You have behind me the estate, which has been built in three parts. In fact, starting in 1720, and then 1820, 1870, and then we're here. So we are just restoring it. So I'm afraid I cannot take you inside, but it will be my pleasure next time to take you inside. We have restored the all the rooms, trying to keep the history and at the same time bring in the modernity. In fact, it's almost like in wine. We still continue to produce wine. Wine was invented 2,000, 3,000 years ago, maybe 5,000, I think, in Iran, the first, and Georgia. But the wines have consistently continued to be improved for our satisfaction. So this is what we try to give here, the atmosphere, trying to be both traditionalist, but also put some modernity.
Well, it looks beautiful. Is that, I mean, obviously it's a landmark chateau. Do you have to get permission from the government to do the renovations, or is it that's not necessary?
Yeah, I know in France, every
I think we lost the sound for a second. We lost the sound.
we're not concerned. We're not concerned with authorization, so we can do what we want, and it's free. But the park was also recently restored, and it was landscaped in 1880. So we have trees that are actually, we have some American trees. We have the sequoias. We have a few sequoias down there, and all that has been created over 130, 50 years ago. So it's really, really, I must say, a very agreeable place. But more importantly, maybe I take you to the vineyard.
Yes.
We are just located in the middle of the vineyards, and it's a privileged situation because we are next to the estuary. The estuary is just behind the trees here, and let's say half a mile from us. And the estuary, the Gironde estuary, is the largest estuary in Europe, covering 674,000 square kilometers. So I'm sorry, I should have translated in American measures, but it's a really, really big estuary. And those huge quantities of water that are moved in and out 4 times a day really act as an air conditioning system to our vineyards here.
Wow.
And of course, here we are on the river bank of on the bank of a primitive river that was there 4 million years ago, and what we call here the Grave, the Gunzian Graves that gave their name to the estate. So we can see here the vineyard. And so you see, Beaucaillou means beautiful stones. And those stones are really a key element in the quality of the wine. So, you know, in French, we have the word terroir, but the word terroir is, can easily be translated by ecosystem. It's the idea that you have a unique location geographic. You have this climate dictated by the estuary, and you have the slope going down, and you have those stones in the ground. All that together make an ecosystem, a terroir that is so specific and gives us the possibility to really make superb wines.
Mm.
And maybe now we can move inside, and we start the tasting. That's the most important.
I've started. You know, I can't wait when I see some nice bottles of Bordeaux, you know, open in front of me. They're going to get tasted.
Great.
It's
thank you so much for the invitation, John. We really, and Lily, we really appreciate this unique opportunity to.
Okay, I think we lost you for a second going inside. We lost you for a second. All right, there we go. Now you're back. Yes, so great to have you here, and I mean, it's pretty incredible. So it's actually Ducru's 300th anniversary, tricentennial. I mean, it's our Acker's bicentennial. We thought that was good. It's our 200th, but now, you know, I don't feel like it. I feel it's kind of small now because it's your 300th. So congratulations on that historic achievement. And your family has been in since the early 1940s, right? What's the history behind your family involved with the chateau?
It's in fact it's a story. So the estate was we are celebrating, in fact, the 300 years anniversary of the founding wedding between Mademoiselle Desjans and Monsieur de Bergeron. So de Bergeron was an esquire, rather of little novelty, local novelty. And Madame Desjans was, I think, more bourgeois, but probably a little richer. And she brought to the wedding the land and the house that became what was called Moncaillou, but became Beaucaillou after some years. And then the Ducru was the name of a previous owner that purchased the estate from the Bergeron family. So it's really, an estate is also a story of families, and each of them bringing their own stone to the construction of the property. As far as our family is concerned, we are originally from the center of France, from the Corrèze region. Corrèze region was a very rather poor region of France, and they started to explore the France as soon as the train was there, and try to find new opportunities for a better life. And they started to, they were all farmers, but they started to travel and sell wine as early, I would say, 1870. And each time they were making a little profit, they would invest in land, and they finally purchased the first estate in 1900, was Caron Saint-Eugène, and which is just 3 kilometers away from here. And they built their first warehouse in 1900. Then, of course, you had the First World War, and then my grandfather and his brother came back safely from the First World War, which was quite unusual. And they started to develop their negociant activity, their merchant activity. And then my grandfather and his brother had an estate called Chateau Bataillé that they divided in two parts, one becoming Au Bataillé and the other one remaining Chateau Bataillé. And my grandfather ran into Monsieur Fernand Desbarras in 1940, I think, or 41. And Ferdinand Desbarats wanted to sell the estate for some obscure family reason. They were not really going very well together with the son-in-law, with etc., etc. So they were fighting, and so Monsieur Desbarats decided that he wanted to sell the estate, but it was impossible to sell the estate with the war and so on and so forth. So he decided to rent the estate, and he offered my grandfather what we call farming. So he offered for a fee to my grandfather to take care of the estate. And then in the 60s, we were finally the owner, but we are responsible. Our family is responsible for the wine since 1941. And since then, after him, my father took the property in the mid-50s. And then my father, unfortunately, passed away in 98. And I am in charge of the estate since 2003. And I have the privilege, I have the privilege, let us say, to work for my ladies. In other words, to work for my mother and my sister that are co-owner of the estate.
Wow, that's great. That's great. And since you took over in 2003, what changes did you institute? How have you put your personal style on the chateau?
It's a good question because of course everybody has the temptation to try to put his own imprint in an estate, but also I think you need to have a little modesty, and we can see this year, like every year, but this year where we're having the beginning of the season is a little difficult. We see that the real master, the real management is Mother Nature. And there is only so little you can do against nature. So the philosophy is more to say, to work with the nature and try to adapt, not try to force the nature, but adapt yourself to the nature. And this is, I think, what we've been doing since 2003 with my team, really coming back closer to nature, closer to the vines, closer to everything, and bring in more and more details. It's almost now a manicure activity. We really have a lot of manual intervention. In fact, behind this bottle of wine, there is no less than 50 manual intervention. It's a long process, but always a very delicate activity. It's of course, like we all know, pruning and etc., plugging and etc., but also very important to do, like we are starting, or we started 10 days ago now, leaf thinnings, because you have a lot of humidity. So in order to aerate the clusters, we need, and let the wind dry the grapes. We need to do some leaf thinnings and also to eliminate clusters that might have been affected by rot or etc. So a lot of manual. What I think we've done is to really get closer. You know, in France, we love vacation, we love weekends, we love, even though weekend is probably an English word, but but the French, we love, we have 5 weeks, 5-week vacation a year, and we have long weekends and so on and so forth. So this is not idle for a vineyard. You must serve the vines whatsoever, Sundays, Saturdays, every day. And it's this is probably the new revolution, where until now, I would say, but it's the same for all agricultural activities. For thousands of years, the humanity have tried to depend less on Mother Nature and get more freedom and get more, make it much easier for them. But so now we are coming back, and we depend on, or we put ourselves, we position ourselves under the nature and say, okay, if the weather is not good today and we anticipate a better weather during the weekend, let us work during the weekend. And if we have rain on the Monday, then take the Monday off, and so on and so forth. So that's really the evolution that we have in the vineyards. It's for me, but I would say it's also a general evolution. Very proud of my neighbors, and I think that really in the Medoc region we are all doing a lot, and certainly working more and more precisely.
Well, that's it's amazing. You know, it's interesting to hear you talk about the vineyards so much, because I think, you know, in Burgundy, all they do is talk about the vineyards in the section of lands, but you don't hear that same you know, you don't really hear people talk about it in Bordeaux, you know, like the same way. And you're talking about it in that manner. And to me, that's impressive. I mean, that really goes to, I think, show why, I mean, your wines have become, you know, really, I think more highly considered since you took over than before. No offense to the previous generations, but I think you've really, you know, elevated the quality level and, you know, the perception of the chateau. And you're right, it starts in the vineyard. So that's nice to hear.
Thank you. It's, I think it's, thank you very much. I think, well, I've always been the country guy. I was born and raised here on the estate, and it's so funny because to give you this little story, once I was in, we were having a dinner with some friends and people I did not know that were invited and etc. And we started talking and etc. And all of a sudden we have this couple that explained that he's a vet and she is an agronomist, fully graduated engineer. So they are top schools and etc. And they explained that they started from their farm and how difficult it was, and that they were still with horses, and they'd seen the first tractors arriving at the turn of the 60s, and but they were still using horses and etc. and how difficult it was. So I was full of admiration until I realized I had exactly the same life. So, when I was a kid here, I was always in with the horses, and we also had some cattle in those days. In those days, the estate could live by itself. You know, it was, we were producing. We had our cattle, we had our poultry, we had etc. It was a real farm, but with a major activity on wine. But it's very interesting to see. We're just. I was really a farmer, and I recall in my youth when I turned 16, my father sent me to England so that I will learn a little English. But for me, for the summer vacation, for me it was such a terrible experience. I came back and I said, "Hey, Father, I see what you mean. You want me to speak English. So why don't you send me to America? Because we had some American visitors in those days." And he said, "Well, it's a little far away," and so on and so forth. But finally, he sent me to America, and I was lucky enough to end up in San Francisco, and then for a couple of days, I think. And then first thing I moved in the vineyard, working at Monterey Winery in the little village of Gonzales. But I was so happy in the vineyards. And I made a lot of friends there. I recall we were with the workers. There were some Mexicans, and I can recall that I was a little of a poacher, I think. So we were starting to shoot quails in the vineyards, and barbecue the quails and have a little wine. So I brought a little taste of wine to California, to the beautiful downtown Gonzales that nobody heard about, but it was in the valley, in Monterey, next to Monterey, and really a lovely time. But my roots, I love cities, but I'm really a peasant. I'm really a farmer, and I'm very happy in my land.
So was it always a fait accompli that you would take over the chateau, or was there kind of, that was it? You were in the vineyards. You knew from the very beginning that this is where you were going to be.
In fact, it was not exactly the idea, because first of all, it was not so easy, and then we were three in the family, so maybe a little too much for what the estate was, and it was not the idea. But I started to study agronomy, but then I switched to economy, and then in fact my first job after university was more in commerce. I studied as a export manager for a merchant in Bordeaux, and that gave me the opportunity to tour the world and sell wine, and more especially to America.
Okay.
And then
we have.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
And then after that, I came to I ran into a little company. In fact, I recall I was in New York once, and I went up in the Rainbow Room, and I tasted this delicious aperitif that they were serving, which was Lillet, but I didn't know it was from Bordeaux, so it was totally ignored here in France, but it was a little known in America. So I said, wow, that's delicious, and etc. Have it over the rocks with a slice, and so on and so forth. And of course, I must say, I think I was a little in love with this charming lady that introduced me to this drink, and I purchased the company. So that was my real first company that I managed from 1985, and I finally sold it a few years ago. But yeah, my first activities as a professional were more in sales and marketing than they were in agronomy or viticulture. But therefore, I was the happiest man on the planet when it was decided in 2003. When in 2003, on the 3rd of January 2003, my mother put me in charge of Ducru Beaucaillou. That was really a coming back, and I just love it, and I continue to love it every day. It's really wonderful.
That's great. That's wonderful. I've already finished my 2 glasses.
We should start, right?
Just start tasting. Yes, I'm gonna go up and refill because Eric is concerned about my health. Thank you. Yes, I'm a little hot and sweaty. I am not in Puerto Rico where I live and I have air conditioning. I'm actually on vacation in St. Thomas. We island hopped over, and it's one of those beautiful house overlooking a bay. It's an amazing view. I think I put a picture on Instagram for those of you who want to take a peek, but there's no air conditioning in the main rooms, only in the bedrooms. It's one of those kind of real island houses. So, I mean, good health and good spirits. Thank you, Eric, for your concern. Apologies for the little sweatiness here today, but I'm going to refill. Start to talk to us about La Croix.
La Croix de Beaucaillou. Yeah, it's La Croix de Beaucaillou is what we call a second label, but of course, like nothing is simple in France. It's not exactly a second label. In other words, it's not really a second choice. It is really a separate vineyard, a vineyard that is located in the center of the appellation of Saint-Julien, which is mostly planted with Cabernet Sauvignon, and the rest being Merlot. I think in the In the 2016, you have 64% Cabernet Sauvignon, 33% Merlot, and there is a little dash always of Petit Verdot. So I did not introduce the estate. We are now the proud owner in Saint Julien, the commune of Saint Julien, in the very heart of the Medoc Peninsula, is a vineyard. Saint Julien is a vineyard of 900 hectares, let's say 1,800 acres of vineyards with 11 classified groves. We are I think one of the largest, the second largest estate in Saint Julien. But we have, of course, the privilege, like I said earlier, to be on the bank of the estuary, the Gironde estuary, and of course, it's a real privilege. Like we say in Bordeaux, the best estate have an eye on the river, so we are just above the estuary. That gives us this climatic advantage. But for the first one, for the Ducru Beaucaillou, the ecosystem is, the vineyard is in the middle of the appellation, so therefore the climate doesn't depend on the estuary, but depends on a little stream called La Mouline, the Mo. It's really in the middle of all the classified groves. And our ambition, even though it's a second label, or it's a, like my neighbor would say, an alter ego, it's really a wine for which we have ambition. It's exactly made as a classified gross. It's aged, it's all picked by hand. It's then vinified exactly the same way as any other wine here. And it's aged in barrel with 2/3 of new barrel during 12 months. So not all the problem of the second wine is that it's a big category where everything is a second wine. So you have the second wine of the first course, of the super second, and then on the Cru Bourgeois, and then on the Artisan, and then the Petit Chateau, the Petit, and so on and so forth. So it's an unclear category. But if you consider, of course, that all the effort that we make for the first wine, you can imagine that for the second wine, it's already a top level. And it's a wine for connoisseurs. It's a wine for wine lovers. It's not a speculative item. It's a wine that will not double in the price in the term. It's pretty reasonably priced. And it's a wine for pleasure, for wine lovers again. So 2016 is a wonderful vintage. I know, John, we make the vintage of the century every year, of course. So you have 100 vintage of the century per century. But no, more seriously, honestly, we've been extremely privileged since for this new century. But 2016, 2018, and 2019 are really superb vintage, and they are really to be considered. We have wonderful weather, and I think you have the full ripeness. On the nose here, you have this very ripe nose. You start to have what is typical of our wine, this little cigar. There is a little cigar that appears, old cigar, that you can, you're close to Cuba, so you can see what I'm trying to say. You have this kind of
like the tobacco, yep, tobacco, a little like tobacco smell, right? You know, more than cigar. It's like that kind of wet, fresh tobacco, you know. It's a fabulous wine. I mean, so it's interesting to me because this really is a separate wine. It's its own unique wine with its own unique vineyards. So I think the perception is by a lot of people that, oh, it's a second wine, you know, oh, you know, no. But like this wine is delicious. I mean, I'm drinking these two wines. Like this is a fabulous example of like great drinking Bordeaux. And I think, you know, I think a lot of wine consumers, maybe in America, more so than in other places like Asia or South America or some of the other markets around the world, have kind of forgotten that, like, there's a whole lot of Bordeaux that's out there that's not the top 50 chateaus. I mean, even though obviously you are one of them, but this is a different wine that you make, and it's so good. It's so easy to drink. I mean, I don't feel bad drinking it, even though it's young and can age. Like these are both enjoyable, and I might say that 2014 is even at a more enjoyable stage. It has that kind of richness in the fruit, and that the 16 is holding back a little bit. But I mean, this is the first time I've had these wines, and I'm like, wow, like these are the kind of wines I would like to turn people on for, like, drinking every day in a kind of fine wine way.
It's thank you, John. It's yeah, I love the aromas, the beautiful aromas on the 14. The 14 is just ready. It's a real nice wine.
Yeah, a lot of great fruit, really richness.
Yeah. Very rich flavors. So you see, I decanted the wine. Maybe one will say, "Oh, you're a little snobbish." No, it's not a question of snobbish. We need to breathe and bring a little oxygen. And so all the bottles were opened. It's now 7 my time, but it was open like an hour ago, and we decanted them like 15 minutes ago, and they are just perfect now to taste. The color of the 14 is just turning a little. It's still red, but it's a little on the ring, slightly turning on the orangey, a little orangey, and the flavor is just superb. I think there is even
yeah, and a little kiss of kind of like that citrus kiss of fruits there. I mean, it's a delicious wine. When was the first vintage of this wine? How long have you been making this?
It's also another good question, John. It's and it's a pleasure to be with you today. In fact, it was only bottled since 1995.
Okay.
And before that, my father simply refused to put his name. He was selling it in bulk because he said, "No, I make only Ducru Beaucaillou, so everything which does not make it into Ducru Beaucaillou is sold in bulk, and I don't put my name on it." But down the road, once he found a bottle in a store using his name and saying it was the second wine of Ducru Beaucaillou. So then he said, "Okay, if I sell it in bulk and that they label it under my name, maybe I should do it." So he started to bottle in 1995.
And it was always this idea of the vineyards and kind of selecting which wines.
That is one of the changes I implemented. It's since 2005 that it is really a clearly identified vineyard. 2005.
Well, this is a great wine. I mean, just in its own right, it'd be fascinating to do like a vertical of La Croix. I'd like to, maybe we can do that in New York when we get back to doing events. I mean, or a 2x2 series or something, because I mean, this is a great wine. I'm very impressed. Yeah, what is Lily? What does this wine sell for? And what do we have some, right?
We are
14 La Croix we're selling for $52.99, and the 2016 is $69.99. So for kind of typical Saint Julien, I think a great price point for real serious Bordeaux.
That's a real wine for $50 or $60.
Yeah.
That 14 is singing, and that's kind of my like everyday price point. The kind of wines I like to drink every day, $40-$50, and you can get a lot of great quality, but this is as good as anything I've had, from Bordeaux in that price point for sure. So you set a 6-pack aside for me, please, Lily. I need some more drinking Bordeaux of the 14. I really like. I think that's in a great spot. Yeah, so you made a change in the vineyard. So you said these vineyards are for Ducru and these vineyards are for La Croix. Is that how How did you go about that process?
It's so when I arrived here in 2003. Of course, I had been away for a while, so I had no really precise ideas, but I started to look around and find out, and until we had our real strategy, which was really the turn of 2005, which was really 2005. And with this idea that we would have the vineyard on the western part of the appellation that will make what we another estate, which is called Bruno Borie, which we kept separate, and then the center will make the Ducru Beaucaillou, and the vineyards that are around here, the estate next to the estuary, will make the Grand Vin, the Ducru Beaucaillou. As a result, for my partner, it was not really the most financially viable decision, because in translation, instead of an estate that used to make 15 to 20,000 cases, we came down to 10,000 cases, 7,500 cases per year. So roughly, we divided by two the production of the Ducru, not by choice, not to create rarity, but just to be more precise in our selection and make the style that we will taste now. You know, to have this very precise Ducru. What I try to find with my teams is really get to the essence of Ducru Beaucaillou. What does it mean going to the essence? Is to really Ducru has a reputation for its unique elegance, its perfect elegance. There is nothing in excess, but it's very rich. It speaks a lot. It develops a lot of beautiful things, but it has this unique. It's really perfectly harmonious and delicate and full of novelty. So what we are trying to do by narrowing the source, by narrowing the vineyard of the Ducru Beaucaillou, we get closer to this, and we reach it more often than in the past, probably. And this is exactly the philosophy that we have. So in terms of economy, it's not very good, but in terms of satisfaction, our satisfaction and the consumer satisfaction, I think we gave. So
I mean, yeah, that's a big financial hit. I mean, that's a serious commitment to quality, and I think it ties into, we had a question earlier, Lily, right? I'm gonna grab my Ducru bottles to get ready out of my refrigerator because I had to keep them cool. So why don't you ask that question? I think it's an interesting one from Donald.
Okay, so the question that we received from Donald is regarding kind of the elevation of certain chateaus in 1973, particularly Mouton. And he was wondering what the effect on other Bordeaux second growths in 1973 was as Mouton was elevated. And we all know that Ducru has an outstanding legacy of quality. And is there any consideration to elevate or consider elevating Ducru? And what is the conversation like that about?
It's a very good question, Donald, and thank you for bringing it. In fact, I think at this point there is no discussions about a new classification, because each time they come with a new classification, it's almost like a declaration of war. Those who are upgraded, those who are downgraded, those who are, it's impossible. So I think and there is a little chance it will evaluate, but we will see. But so far, I think it's not really on the table. What is, I think, for us, the classification is just a challenge. Our ambition every year, of course, is to be like a first course. So to accumulate top scores, like I must say, very immodestly, like we did for the 2019, where we have accumulated 5 supreme scores with the top critics of the world. We are hitting the first. We are just like a first. And on the other hand, we sell for not even a third of the price of the first course. So, but down the road, maybe we will get a little better recognition, and we'll be able to be entitled to a few pieces of the a few crust of the pie.
I'm sure all the consumers joining us today are very happy that it is 1/3 of the price and it's quality, basically. I mean, but so that's nice to have a little bit of value for the consumer.
It's okay, and we manage. It's a good. It's viable in terms of business wise. So and we get recognition, and that's fine. So there is no to fully answer the Donald's question. There is no rumors of the new classification in Bordeaux. We consider it as a monument of history, and we don't really work on it in this year, and we don't really present ourselves as so much as classified growth. Well, in new markets, the idea of a classification is more important with new markets than it is with more classic markets like America. America, you have a level of sophistication, and you really know and put things where they have to be put, and consider and reactualize probably the classification or the vision of each individual estate. But for new markets, it's a totally different story, because they don't know the names and etc. So they are a little confused. So it's a line which we don't always like, but it's a line. At least it's a guidance. So that was a long answer to a small question, but that's about the point for classification.
What about Saint Julien? Is there a signature style to the region? And is there something, I mean, I guess the vineyard, it really sets Ducru apart, and the terroir from your neighbors, or is there something else about Ducru, and how does the appellation of Saint Julien compare to the other appellations? What do you think makes it unique?
I don't want to make it too complicated, but it's not very simple. So Saint Julien is one of the smallest appellations. We are just almost the same size, probably a little bigger than Pomerol, but we are as small as Pomerol. It's so it's the smallest of the Medoc. It's located in the very center of the appellation. If you look in the books of the 19th century and just before the classification, Saint Julien has a better reputation than Pauillac. But also, even because before the appellation system is only from 1933. And but before that, they already had classification, and they already had communes. So Saint Julien was existing, Pauillac was existing, Margaux was existing 300 years ago already, and recognized as making some good wines or lesser wines or medium wines and etc. So already you find research or publications that put each village on the map. And Saint Julien has always recognized for its supreme elegance. It's it has the elegance of Margaux with a little more background, and it has a little of the power of Saint-Estèphe, but with this in a lesser, in less strong manner. So it's a balance, I would say, between those two, which is geographically and in terms of quality. So really, what you look for Saint-Julien is these very expressive aromas and extreme novelty. They are, I think they are unique in terms, and just put my nose in the 16 Ducru. This is so typical of Saint-Julien. This is so academic. It's just these beautiful aromas that you have here, but it's so refined. There is nothing, it's not big, you know, it's not like super muscular. It's extremely refined, but very present. It talks to you. It really expresses a lot. And this is, I think, the characteristic, the bouquet, you know, bouquet, this word, we use less and less this word in contemporary days of bouquet. But bouquet to me is a perfect expression to describe the aromas that you find in a glass of wine, because a bouquet is always composed, or sometimes composed, with different flowers and different colors and etc. So you have all those different things that appears that are, it's very composed. The 16 has a very, very composed bouquet on the nose. It's all these aromas that arise are and are so delicate, subtle, and delicate.
It's fabulous. I mean, there's a freshness, there is a minerality to it. There's this, like, and refined was the thing, and a finesse and a style. And while it's still a young wine, again, it's like there's enjoyment to be had out of this. And I think there's a big perception, oh, like with Bordeaux, that, oh, you can't, oh, it's Bordeaux, you have to wait 20 years and you can't drink it and you can't enjoy it. Do you think that, I mean, clearly these wines, these young wines are very pleasurable to me, and I don't feel like, oh, I shouldn't be drinking them, right? Do you think that's something that you try to achieve? Is that something the entire region is trying to achieve? Talk about drinkability.
Again, it's again a very good question and a very good comment you make, Jerome, because in fact, in the recent past, what we've done, I think, is widen the window of consumption. The wines are really earlier to drink because they have this absolute purity that you have here. I mean, in the 16, you have the bouquet, which is beautifully composed, but there is nothing that you want to extract or to put away that you are not satisfied with. In the old time, when we were having a little less precision, you will always say, okay, I wait until the wine will cover the defaults. But now the bouquet, just almost as soon as it is bottled, let's say 2 or 3 years after bottling, you have this perfect bouquet, and the wines are ready to drink. Of course, it is a new evolution because of the techniques that we apply in the vineyard. What do we do? First of all those manicure care and etc. It means that you have 100% of the berry. Each single berry has been picked, has been selected. The selection starts with each individual berry. In the 60s, the selection started by a plot or even a vineyard. They were putting up, no, here we already had, it was already separated plot by plot, but in general, they would probably blend, depending on what they were picking that day, they will be not as precise as we are today. And but by doing all this manicure care in the vineyard, by doing very precise vinification, every year we have more precision with the new vats that we are using. The level of precision in the fermentation process is unbelievable. We control the temperature almost every minute. during the fermentation. We can taste, we can say we want to extract, or we stop extracting because now we have too much alcohol, and etc., or we have too much extraction, etc. Everything is much more precise. The result is, and in the blend, my father used to say in a blend, 3%, you don't really see the difference. Now in a blend, last year I said with a third of a percent, 0.33, you already see the difference. This year, 0.25%, we saw the difference in the final blend. So it means that really the wines, each individual batch is so pure that when we blend them, you have a wine of purity. And therefore, it is a wine that is ready earlier to drink. And at the same time, because like in the 16, you have a lot of tannin. It's very rich wine. They are very powerful, much more tannin than you had in the 60s. And so the wines have more feature. So we make wine for eternity, and especially like the 2019 is the richest wine. Of course, it was for our 300th anniversary and your 200th anniversary. But we did our best, but the level of tannins and anthocyanins that you have in this bottle is unbelievable. And when the tannins and the anthocyanins will complex together, it will make a wine of unique stability. It is a wine of eternity. And at the same time, the tannins are so supple, so delicate and silky that you can almost drink them now. So yes, again, it's a too long answer for a very good question. We have narrowed by more precision, more techniques. Really, it's not that we are genius. Don't misinterpret me. It's just that we consider we are more and more, we take more and more care of everything. We really understood that we are a food industry, and it's like if we were making, I don't know, preserves or etc. The fruits must be absolutely perfect. We must have the perfect level of maturity. We must sort everything to the very, very precision, and all that together makes wines of more precision, more purity, that are ready to drink earlier.
And what about climate? Has climate affected the regional climate change? Do you find yourself picking earlier and earlier as time goes on?
It's very interesting also. What we found is that, in fact, you know, we are at the northern limit of the Cabernet Sauvignon here in the Medoc. The king of the Medoc is the Cabernet Sauvignon. And we are at the northern limit. What it means, the global warming means that we have an opportunity to make more often top vintages of full maturity. We reach more often the full maturity of the cabs, but it does not, but it does not go further than that. The length of the cycle is the same. In fact, it's even a little longer now because we take more care. But without entering too much into details, we used to harvest after 110 days after flowering in the old days, when you in the 80s, 70s, and probably in the 60s they were harvesting at 105 days, but generally harvest at 110 days. Now, very regularly, almost every year, we harvest at 120 to 125 days after the flowering. It means that it has not shortened the cycle of the Cabernet Sauvignon. And this length is really the key for the quality. It takes longer. If you are in a warmer area where it grows faster, you have a shorter growing season. You have a shorter maturation process. You have wines of less richness. But here, so far, it has just been an advantage, I must say, and I'm sorry to say, because we have just an opportunity to make more often good vintages. But it has not affected the length. On the contrary, for the Merlot, we have slightly shortened the cycle. It was typical last year for the 2019. We had normally, when we started picking the Merlots, we have roughly 3, 4, we have 5, 7 days, and then we can start the Cabernet Sauvignon. But last year, we really not, and more often, we noticed that there is more difference, and there is more, we have to wait more between the Merlot and the Cabernet Sauvignon than in the past. They are not, the Cabernet has not changed the length of the cycle. The Merlot changed the length of the cycle, shortened.
Wow, that's very interesting. So let's move on to the 86 here. We have a
Yep.
bottle of 86. Now, in 2011, you did a major recorking project with the entire cellars of the domain. Talk to us about that. How does the process work? You know, I know there's there's kind of this shroud of secrecy about recorking, and it's kind of like, how does it work? Why did you do it? And you know, that's a good segue into the 86.
In the 80s, to be honest, the 80s was the boom of the wine industry worldwide, and it was difficult to find good sourcing, or it was difficult. The sourcing of the corks was a nightmare, and I was not satisfied with my inventories with a lot of corky bottles. What we have, what we've done is all our inventories. My ambition was to check every single bottle that we have in our cellar and make sure that we will not ship any corky wine or minimize the amount of corkiness. So what we've done is we have, until now, recorking was manual, and it was done with cellar master will open the bottle, eventually try the wine, check if it was okay, eventually refill it with same or different vintage, and etc. And it was not precise. And what we've done with an engineer is develop a machine which will entitle us to uncork all the first uncork the bottle, and second taste, and third recork. The problem of uncorking, pulling the cork off, is that you will bring some oxygen, so there is a risk for the wine. So we started to have a needle and inject some nitrogen underneath the cork, and then extract the cork. So the nitrogen, as you know, is heavier than the air, and it will create at the surface of the wine a protection, so there is no oxidation. Then we extract the cork, and we evaluate, we test the cork, we sniff the cork, and if it is okay, we continue the process. If it is not okay, we take the bottle away. And when it continues on the process, we refill each bottle with the same, another bottle from the same lot, same vintage, and etc. Then we put just a drop of SO2 or sulfur dioxide in order to really sterilize everything. And then we put back a cork, a new cork, and then it's finished. So there is absolutely no hand of any kind along the process. The line, everything goes on the line. The only hand you have is when you put at the beginning of the line, and then take off at the end of the line. But in the middle, it's and you will see that more often, because this machine has been used by a lot of my neighbors and colleagues. But it was created with and for us back in 2011. And the result is that, of course, you have a perfectly new cork. It's beautiful cork. And therefore, it's a bottle that you can keep for another 40 years. And of course, you have this process. We have tasted, at the beginning, we had a little needle to taste the wine, but I must tell you, it was a little too tiring to actually have a sip of each bottle. So to be honest, we only sniff the cork and decide if it is corky or not. To be very honest, it was not possible humanly, even though I drink a fair amount of wine, but it's a little too much to try all the bottles. And the result, I think, is beautiful. You have this 86, which is now at its full maturity. Of course, the color is still beautiful, but it is orangey, like a terracotta, I would say.
No,
This evening I got a little strawberry, which is very new to me, but that's what I have on the nose right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns to this black fruit. I even have a little truffle here, and the cedar box that is very typical of also of Saint Julien. When you have this empty this box of cedar, it's very typical. And then now I have at the end I have some very flowery flavors, like very fresh spring flowers.
That's a beautiful wine.
Lila, I don't know how you say lila. It's not lilies. No, it's not lilies. Lila, I don't know how you say lila. It's
Lilac.
violet. Lila,
Lilac.
it's the same word. Beautiful. I have some lila here. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Lily.
Yeah, I mean, it's gorgeous. So it's interesting. So you did this process. It sounds like you put, I mean, I remember when I visited you and had dinner at Ducru and saw this machine, and it was very like, you know, it was like, wow, you're putting more science into it than previously done. And so really the whole point is to remove these potentially flawed bottles and to make sure everything has, because this to me doesn't taste like it's recorked. Sometimes you can taste like, obviously, oh, this is recorked. It tastes so young compared to what it should be. So, I mean, to me, this just tastes naturally like a great 86,
Yeah,
which is very impressive.
it's exactly that. I think, and thank you for bringing this. I'm a great believer. I know that we have people that love to look behind and look in the past, and I adore history. I've been digging in the history to discover this 300 years of history and etc. So I'm a great believer, and I'm reading all the Latin and Greek authors that brought about. I was Virgil. You pronounce Virgil. I don't know how you pronounce him.
Virgil.
Virgil.
Yeah.
Géorgique, the beautiful, beautiful book of agronomy that was written 2,000 years ago, and they have already found the better vineyards of Italy. And they say, you have this vineyard for making red wine, this one for the white, this one for the sweet, this one for... It's unbelievable. So I'm a great believer in history. I love history, and I think I cherish all our ancestors. On the other hand, I think that science is key, and science helped us and will help us even more to make, it's even in cooking. I love cooking. Now, since you had some scientific who started to work on the temperature for cooking, and when you liquefy the bones and etc., the right temperature to keep the gelatin. I'm sorry, my English is a little poor on that. But in other words, once you have found a theory of cooking with a physician and a chemist, you make the slow cooking, you make all kind of beautiful invention, and the food is much better. And we had a fish the other day, and it was, there is this new Japanese, new to us, ikejime. Ikejime is the way when you have the lively fish, you catch a fish, and you have a certain way to kill the fish so that, first of all, it doesn't suffer, but also you eliminate all the toxins. And you clean it, and the taste of this fish is just beyond. It's just unbelievable, the level of freshness. And of course, because there is no toxin, you can keep it for longer than a normal fish. And then when you cook it, slow cooking, and you realize that, okay, if you are at the temperature, and again, sorry, talking in Celsius, but once you hit the 60 Celsius inside on the bone, it's just perfect, and etc. And what a progress. In the old days, the fish was one time was not cooked enough, the other time was too cooked, it was dried, it was etc. Now you have the perfect softness, you have the perfect cooking, because everything is measured. And it's the same for wine. With measuring the temperature, now we have what we call intelligence vats that communicate and send us all the temperature on a permanent level. The level of oxygen, the level of all the levels, automatic and immediate transmission, so you can react and change your fermentation. It's just perfect. So science is a key. Science is important for us because it helps us to move forward. And we have created a new department last year in November. They arrived at the end of November, 2 young engineers that are working full-time here to research, development, and quality. And I think that really science is a good, is not only good, but is essential, I think, to us to make progress and deliver better quality every year.
Did you find, this 86, so obviously you've had it over many times over the last 10 years since you recorked it. Have you found it to be, did you find it to needed a little time after the recorking, or you feel like it's ready to go?
Always come with the right question. Yes.
I drink a lot, Bruno.
It's yes. When you visited us, it was just the beginning. So I think now, the drop of SO2 that we were adding just on the bottling line at the end is now absorbed by the wine, and it's just perfect. So it took, after all, it took 8 years to be absorbed, but I think now it's absolutely perfect. And like you said, I think you see no difference with our 86, any other 86, and this recork 86, except that thanks to this cork, you can keep this bottle for longer.
Well, we do know that Bordeaux does age the best. I mean, if you're talking about 50, 100 years, I mean, it's, you want a Bordeaux if you're opening something up that old, and that is really, the majesty of Bordeaux, the incredible thing. There is no wine that ages as well as Bordeaux in the world. So it's great to see this. So are you going to be cooking tonight? I hear you're a foodie. I see you're a foodie. You cook yourself? You don't have the chefs at the chateau taking care of dinner for you?
Yeah, no, I take care of myself, and I have the family joining us tonight. So it's thank you. We have a few bottles to enjoy, so it will be a wonderful evening. And then we are having a how do you call them, marag duck that we will roast with turnpicks and carrots, and I think it will be a great time, and we will think of you all, and I really cherish America. I always have wonderful time since my first visit when I was 16, and I love your country, love your people, and I really mean it, because for me it's every time coming back to America, and I adore all the cities. The cities to me look like a museum of contemporary architecture. So I love your country, love your cities, and the countryside, of course. So thank you so much for giving me this unique opportunity to address you and share those wonderful time and wonderful wines with you. I hope you enjoy it just as much as I enjoyed it with you. And I realize we are over an hour now, and I didn't count it. It was just perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bruno. Amazing wines. Congratulations to everything you've done since taking over the chateau, and you know, you are St. Julian's first growth in our opinion. So we will enjoy these wines, and I'll enjoy these wines for the rest of the day. I'm going to jump in the pool to cool down here, and bon appetit. Have a great dinner. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And
Thank you very much, Lily. Really appreciate it. John, thank you. And for all of you, thank you. Cheers.